Yes, yes, yes. Oh, hello, hello.
Hey everyone, how are we all doing?
Hello, Darmon. How are
Yeah,
you? Look at
Darwin, long time no
Julius.
see.
Yeah, good to see you all. Long time. Hope you're all keeping
Yeah.
well and busy.
Always. Busy is
Yes,
the default.
yeah, for sure.
Hello, hello. Hi, we have Teresa. Hi, Emito. Nice to see you. All right.
Oh,
Julius, I think, was taking us on a walk. He's outside. On. There we
With an
go. We don't
amazing
want to
hat.
see that, Julius. Please, you can turn your camera off. That's fine, man.
I want that hat. That's an amazing hat.
Hey, Chris. So nice to see you.
Hello.
All right.
Hey guys.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, everyone.
Okay.
We're going
Good job.
to, kick it off because time is precious. As you know, the behind L&D curtain are the super short and sweet sessions. Let me here try to mute. There we go, Julius, I think. I want to thank Toby for sharing a bit behind his process of implementing an LXP. Super curious to hear what that looked like. I guess we've all been there, done that. And if we haven't, we will surely encounter this beautiful, amazing task. So where do we start? What are the struggles? What are the wins? What's the process? And obviously, like with anything in L&D, I guess we all have our own way of doing things. That's why these type of sessions are really precious, because you get to peek into someone else's brain and process and see how do they go about the challenge. So Toby, thank you so much for hosting the session today. Over to you.
Yeah, so welcome everybody. I think I've seen some of you before, but some of you new. So thank you for joining. So hopefully I won't speak too fast, but I'm conscious there's a lot of things I want to cover. Anna's check in the chat and feel free to interrupt if you've got a question, all that kind of stuff. One of the things that I think is important, I think we've probably all seen this or experienced this, is that this kind of LXP or like learning tech, there's a lot of companies, vendors out there that talk about the importance of learning tech and having an LXP. And they talk about how to implement their LXP, of how easy it is. It's not easy. But there's nobody really that talks about, well, what are the processes that I as an internal person have to go through to do it? I don't know if anybody's familiar with Red Thread. I would highly recommend looking them up. It's a bit expensive, but you can get a free version. They're a research arm for it. I would highly recommend taking them. They interviewed me as part of their research for their LXP program. So that's kind of where this comes from. So I want to go through a couple of things.
Sorry.
Red Thread. I think it's in the chat. But it's a research arm specifically designed at learning and development, and it's very, very good research, like kind of university standard research, or peer reviewed. Maybe that's the best way of putting it. So before I get into the actual kind of the tech of the process, I want to cover a couple of key things, and that is about, and I suppose this is a kind of counterintuitive, but an LXP is not the solution that you all need. And everybody talks about an LXP, and yes, they are great platforms, but the key thing is there is no one definition of an LXP. Yes, it's a learning experience platform, but what some companies say, we have an LXP, which, and again, you're going to have to pardon my language, I'm maybe a bit crass sometimes, but it's kind of just a posh LMS. It's just an LMS with a shiny, flashy stuff on it, and it's not a true LXP. They may talk about AI. I read an interesting article recently that said that there's only like 3 companies in the world that have actually got the license to say we have AI, because they have to, not necessarily have to go through the Turing test, but there is like, you have to register to say your computer is AI. Usually what they say is AI is actually just some very clever machine learning. very clever kind of an algorithm, and that's it. That's not AI. So what I'm trying to say is, at the start, think about what you need as a company and what your North Star is. Where are you going? And for me, this is about creating a learning tech strategy. And I differentiate between a learning strategy and a learning tech strategy. A learning tech strategy should fit inside a learning strategy. So for me, for argument's sake, a learning strategy is saying our North Star is democratization of learning. In other words, anybody can add any information to our learning ecosystem. We don't want to put any restraints on it because we want to scale it. But that might not fit other companies, but just as an example. So let's say that's your North Star. That means that your learning tech needs to then fit into that strategy, and the tech you go after, or the tech you research, the tech you look into, needs to fit towards that North Star. So for example, using that example of democratization of learning, I would then choose, say, a video learning platform of something like K-Points, which designs themselves around unfiltered access to video content. Anybody in the company could add their stuff. Whereas if I didn't want, again, I'm not too familiar with the different methods. So there's like democratization. I think there's a feudal system and centralized system. Don't quote me on those things. But for example, if you go, no, our company and the way we want to go is we need to control everything, because let's say you're in security or you're in IT or you need to control it, then you need to say, well, I don't need a platform that's open. I need something, for example, like Coursera or an e-learning system that is locked, that only we can use, and you can get input from it, but only we can distribute it. And that's the tool that we're going to use. So you need to understand where your business is, what are their drivers, what are they getting to, then how does your learning strategy fit to their business needs, and then how does your learning tech strategy fit to that. So let's kind of assume that you've done all that. Then it's a case of, right, let's build a learning tech strategy. Now, in this case, we're going to say a learning tech strategy involves an LXP. LXP may not do. It may be other things. It may not need, you need a single source of truth. It may mean that your divisions and your company is so separated out into separate silos, and they're maybe designed to be silos, is that a single source of truth doesn't actually make any sense because it's overcomplicated. So it may be you actually need separate LMSs with some extra features in them, and they all work. And maybe you need something like a Tableau or a Power BI analytics tool that brings all those platforms together so that you as an analytics, you can run the reports as a whole, but you allow the individual divisions to run their own platforms as they see fit. So there's many different platforms and there's not all one. But let me give you some kind of best tips. Let's just stick with experience. I don't want to start best tips because that kind of sounds like this is the way to go, because there isn't any one way to go. It's just how every company is slightly different. The way I processed in my last company, the first thing I did is I went to events. So as you can probably tell, I'm originally from London. I live in Amsterdam, but my local learning tech event was Learning Technologies in London. It happened 2 weeks ago, I think it was. Maybe some of you were there. I believe it's Europe's largest, at least it used to be before COVID. It was actually very small this year, but yeah, COVID. But I went to my first one probably about 6 years ago, and it was an eye-opener, because before that, I only knew, if I'm being honest, I knew PowerPoint. That's about it. I knew there was such a thing as an LMS, but I wasn't involved in that side. I was just a front-end trainer. I knew PowerPoint, and I knew that. I went to one of these events, I was like, holy mother of moly, it's like technology. I mean, this was years ago, so it wasn't really AXP back then, but it was talking about 70-20-10 and all these different tools and stuff, and it was like, wow. And then for me, that's one of I'd say is to kind of almost everybody that I see that wants to get into learning, get yourself down to one of these events. London does learning technologies. I think in Berlin, is it called EB something, EHB or something like that? I can't quite know the name of it. Something like that. For those, I don't know if anybody's from America, but there are plenty in America. I've got I'm very lucky because I'm going to Vegas in November for the Learn Dev. Okay. I love Vegas. So Vegas training is like the marriage made in heaven. So that's going to be awesome. But get yourself down to them and don't go there with a plan thinking, oh, I need to buy this, I need to buy that, I need to buy that. Just kind of walk around and ask questions. Ask if you've never heard of the platform or a tool that they're offering, just talk to them. Some of them are just salespeople. Some of them are just there, they're hired for the day to talk. They've given their talking points and that's it. But get yourself to find, if you're lucky, maybe the CEO of that company or somebody that actually works for that company, and just chat to them about what you're doing, what you're happening. Now, I'd like to think I can, kind of say to everybody, kind of don't get fooled. Don't just buy don't believe everything you say. When they say AI, it's not AI. When they say, yes, we can do everything, or it's on the roadmap, just walk away. There's no such thing as on the roadmap. In other words, I'm ignoring you and I don't want to answer your questions. So get yourself down to those events. Once you've kind of got a good idea of what kind of technology is about, and in this case, it was an LXP, then for me, it was about building a business case and getting the buy-in. Now, it took me about 2 years, and I'm not kidding, it took me 2 years of building business cases, talking to my manager, getting kind of what do I need? And I started with this basically a shopping list saying, look how good an LXP is. And I realized I wasn't getting anywhere. So I had to kind of flip the switch and start talking about the benefits to the employee. But and again, in English we say, I don't want to teach you how to suck eggs. Don't ask me where it comes from. It's a crazy saying, but there you go. But I'm sure all of you know this, but think who you're presenting to. If you're presenting to the business, you need to say what's in it for them. If I'm being honest, they don't care about the customer. They care about their first port of call is what makes it easier for me? How do I get success? Then I care about the customer, but we're all selfish people. So when you're presenting to them, you've got to think what's important to them and then build the business case around them. In my example, it took me, like I said, about 2 years to figure this out. It was purely money. I was talking about the benefits of LXP and the automation and the scaling, and it was brilliant, and everybody's going to have this experience. And then I just so happened, I basically wormed my way into a meeting where they were going to sign off for the next 3 years of our LMS. And I turned around to the person that was running the show and said, what would you say if I said I could save you 100,000 a year on learning? And they went, okay, you're in. And that was it. It was as simple as that. Because for us, we had Cornerstone, which was crazy expensive, at least at the time. And we said, well, we go with an LXP that does LMS and LXP. We're saving 100,000 a year straight off. The one in Vegas was DevLearn, I believe it's called, DEVLEARN. And where am I? Yeah, so I literally just said, I'm going to save you 100,000. And from them, it was like, oh, you're in. And now start building it up. So in terms of the actual process, I want to kind of stop so that we can get some questions in about 10 minutes time. So the process for me was, again, I've done a lot of research myself over the years of going to all these learning tech events. So the first point, I think I started with about 15 LXPs, well, what they classed as LXPs. And so what you'll find is as you start ringing each of them up and actually talk to them about what your needs are, what they are, you can very quickly go through that list and go, yeah, you're not an LXP, you're a wannabe LXP, you're a startup. And that's not, there's a lot of companies out there that if you, again, I don't know who individuals, but if you're working for a multinational company, they want you. And if I'm being honest, the only reason they want you is to go on their website to say, we worked with that company. It's very much branding and marketing and stuff. They want that first chink to say, yeah, we got into that big company. So be warned of those kind of companies, especially the startups. So from 15, I did kind of my own personal due diligence, just looking through them, saying, and again, I'm not talking about requirements, I'm going to cover that in a second, but just my own, what do I want based off my business case, based off what the customers are saying, based off what my manager and stuff is saying, discussions I've had with groups like yourself, what kind of thing do I want? And then from there, I think I whittled down my 15, and I had my own personal demos. Well, pardon me, I'll cover demos in a second, but my own little demos with each of them. I got, I think, most of them to do a demo with me. And yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of like good practice, but things like, obviously never commit to anything. Talk about pilots. If they're not committed to running any kind of pilot or at least a demo, or then just no. It's, you've got the power in these kind of things, because there's a lot of companies out there. So I think I whittled down mine to 8. Then from 8, then it went into our official process. So I was lucky that I had a project manager. Get yourself a project manager, or sign yourself up to a PMP, Prince 2, whatever. It is absolutely invaluable for this kind of stuff. I was indebted to our project manager because I just let her take all the stress out of all the different things, because an LXP is not just learning, it's IT, it's HR, it's comms, and they're just the big ones that need to be involved. So, but that project manager sorts out everything for you. So get yourself a project manager and then start to build a requirements list. Now for us, I won't share it with you, but I'm gonna send Anna, I'll send you the Excel. It's 180 line Excel. Now it doesn't sound much, but that each line was a different requirement we wanted that we were currently doing for learning and development. And what we did is it basically said, this is what we're doing, and this is where we want to go. So we asked everybody, our customers, our employees, our different divisions, everybody that's involved in L&D or even touching L&D in your company, you need to go to them and say, as far as you're concerned, what requirements do you currently need now? Mandatory training, reporting, all that kind of stuff. And then where would you love to be? What, in ideal, what would it want to be, automated or whatever it is? And so with that document, you can then send that to them and say, as part, I mean, I always get confused because you've got RFI, which is request for information. Then you got RFQ, which is request for quotes, and RFP. So an RFI is that first step. I want information. Give me. I want a demo, that kind of stuff. That's the easy bit. Then you've got your RFP. And your RFP, although it says request for price, what you're basically saying is, here are all my requirements. Kind of what would you charge me based on these requirements? And more importantly, can you fulfill these requirements? And we actually got rid of a lot of companies simply because when we sent them the requirements, they either didn't want to reply because they said, no, let me talk to your director of learning and I'll walk you through it. And we're like, no, F off. If you're not going to follow our process, if you're not going to follow a process now, what are you going to be like when we implement and we need to follow a process? So we're like, no, sorry, go away. Even if they're good fit, go away. Then it's like things like, it's on our roadmap. Really? Okay, you question. Sometimes it actually is. And good companies will show you their roadmap. But it's then like, read through those requirements. It takes a lot of time. For us, it was 180 lines, could be longer. I think I spoke to, when I was doing this, I think it was the Housing Association of one of our UK councils. I think they had 275 lines because governments and stuff. So it could be massive. It could be 5 lines, but it's your research to get the requirements, send it over to them, and then get that requirements back. Most big companies if you speak to your legal team, your finance team, your legal and finance, probably the best ones, they would have a official RFP document that you send out to vendors to say you are a reliable customer, or prove that you're reliable. You are, GDPR compliance. You have a bank account. Those kind of basics. There is an official form that every company should have. If you don't, ping me and I'll see if I can find our one and maybe scrub some of the information and send it over. Not saying it's a template, but it's something. But that needs to be sent as well, because some of the customers that we went with failed our official process because they failed the IT check. Not like, are you IT certified, but they went in and said, no, these guys, I think it was something to do with GDPR, that they didn't have their data center inside of Europe. They had it in Russia. This is years ago, before the war. And that wasn't allowed, or at least under our company's compliance, you had to have it inside of Europe. So the little things you would never know about until you have this form. So it's requirements, RFP form, and then once you've got those back, then it's demos. And we're talking, God, I had 8 companies, and we did, I think, 3 demos each company, each lasting 2 hours, in the space of about 3 weeks. Crazy kind of time. And then on top of that, then we had our leadership wanted to speak to them about where their North Star was going and how they dealt with leadership stuff. So they basically questioned the hell out of them. So you got all that process of like that demo side of things. And then what we did is we created a scorecard. And again, each company is different. And we made a very basic scorecard, or our project manager, should I say, made the scorecard. And we then rated what would their timing like? Did they reply to things on time? Were they a pain in the ass when they were trying to skip the queue or whatever? Did they have the demos? What was the, we had an NPS as part of the survey of our own people that are watching the demo of, would you rate this company if we had it? We rated them on the quality of their RFP process. We rated them on their quality of the reply for their requirements. There's so many different things you can think about. And then basically our project manager came up with a rating system, 4.5, 5.4, whatever it was. And then we came up with 3 because they're all very close. They're all within a point difference. And then, again, I'm happy that we went with Degreed in the end, but it was very, very close. And the reason we went with Degreed was because one of the other companies, our IT guy, wasn't happy with them. It doesn't mean they weren't qualified, doesn't mean they weren't IT, they passed all the IT stuff. It's just our IT man had a bit of a feeling. Now, and this is what I did mention before, get yourself a good IT man on your side that is interested in training, interested in learning where you're going, but knows his or her shit when it comes to IT. Because God, do I learn things. Like, for example, I learned that, my mind's gone blank. When people say that, this platform interacts with this platform, I'm like, okay, that they work. Like, oh, no. There are APIs, X-APIs, there's all different ones. And what they actually say is an API isn't an API. And is it a two-way API? And how many times does it reply in an API? It's just when you start learning these things. But you're not expected to know this from an L&D perspective, but that IT guy is your godsend because they'll be able to check these things that you'll never even think of. So once you've got that decision, then it's saying, right, we are going with whatever it is. Now, obviously, it's invoicing and getting the money sorted out and all that boring stuff. But for us, we agreed on degreed in February of whatever year it was, and we launched in January. So it's a whole year of building up. So if you think of like from when I started, you're talking about 4.5 to 5 years of effort to get from convincing people they need an LXP all the way through to we've got an LXP. And that year, that's the hard bit, because then you are really struggling. You've got different working groups. You've got a compliance working group. You've got an IT working group. You've got a mandatory training working group. You've got your digital learning library learning group, your integrations learn. All these different groups need not necessarily different people, but they all need to be running seamlessly, and all of these running on a timeline, and that's where your project manager really comes into effect. I'm going to stop there because I know it's almost a time, but I tried to get as much information out as possible. But I know it's probably a mind dump of stuff, but A, I hope that was useful, and B, questions. Oh, you can just speak. Oh, but we can't hear you unless,
No,
is it just me?
No, we can't hear you, Teresa. It's probably your input output from the headsets.
Yeah, this is better.
Now we hear
There
you.
we go.
Yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, I was wondering, when you compiled your requirements list, how did you go about gathering the requirements? Was it like a structured, quantitative type of information gathering, meaning survey different groups of stakeholders and then everything was compiled?
So I kind of cheated, if I'm being honest, because I spoke to, so similar to this group, I don't know if anybody's familiar, and Anna, this is not like recommending the competitor or anything, but Learning Sharks is a really, really great group. Christopher Lind is one of my friends. He runs it. They do really great videos and stuff. And they have a lot of like chief learning officers and kind of, not saying this group doesn't, but they have some pretty good people in there. Again, not that this group doesn't, but I'll shut up now. And I basically just went to them and said, can somebody please give me their requirements list? And I got, again, this company, this housing association, went, yeah, just don't kind of scrub everything, but here it is. And basically I then had 270 lines of all their requirements. And again, because I was cheating, I just sent that out to everybody saying, is this right? I sent it out to literally everybody I could think of, and then said, please send this on to anybody that you think needs to talk about requirements or needs to have an input in this. And then I'd just say, the ones that don't mean anything to you, delete them. If you think there's missing one, add them. So I was like, I'm not running this. I'm not controlling this, because you'd go crazy. It's just send it out and see the magic that comes back. Was there a question on the text that I saw?
Yes, and Toby, will you share your list of requirements with the class?
I must admit, I'm going to have to find, because I'm now in a new company, and I can't remember if I copied over, when people kind of like take stuff that's important.
Let us know. I'm just putting it out there.
I'm going to try.
Otherwise, we'll join Learning Sharks and.
I'm going to try as much as I can to find that document. I still have friends in my old company that can probably maybe do me a favor. So I'll try my best to get it out to you.
And there was a question from Sam in the chat. Is there a different process from LMS versus the LXP? Is one easier than the other?
No, if I'm being honest. I'd say the most difficult bit is if you've already got an LMS and then you have to go to an LXP. Well, have to, because some LXPs have both LMS and LXP combined, others don't. So if you're going from an LMS to an LMS LXP, you've got that decision of, do we get rid of that one? And so it's not just, like for us, it was quite easy because we just had Degreed that plugged over the top of our LMS. But if you're talking about replacing, like in my current company, we went from Cornerstone to Workday. Don't start me on Workday learning. But it took them 6 months just in moving everything from one LMS to another. So it's not a easier or harder. It's just, if anything, it's harder when you've already got the equipment and you have to then change it or slightly tweak it, then starting afresh. But no, the requirements, RFP, all same thing.
I had a question, Toby. Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just, I think a very fundamental question. I just wanted to understand, you mentioned it took you almost 2 years to convince your management about doing LMS in the company. Just wanted to understand what was the problem that you were solving by getting an LXP into your organization, which you felt an LMS wasn't solving. What was the pain point you felt, okay, this is something that my LXP will probably solve?
I mean, I could talk about this for a while, and I appreciate we're kind of slightly over time, but I mean, I'm happy to stay. But for me, the biggest bit was about scaling learning and about democratization. I mentioned before that kind of, because we had a big company, it was like biggest, 10,000 people, but it was spread all over the world. Each division doing their own kind of little thing, and we didn't want to bring it all in, but we wanted to give everybody the ability to scale. I think my old manager called it scale at the speed of learning or something like that. It was basically the idea that we just couldn't be the roadblock anymore. We couldn't do the training. We need to let them do the training. And yes, we could just run a video platform and off you go, but we had a video platform, we had LinkedIn Learning, we had a knowledge base, we had all these different platforms. So it made sense to have an LXP that had one single source of truth for the individual to get the best experience of what they needed.
All right, thank you. Thanks for that.
Scale at the speed of learning. I like that. Something, I think it was scale, was it? I can't remember exactly what the title was, but it was something like that. But yeah, it's that jargon. And again, it's that speaking the language of the leadership. I am, as you can probably tell, I am terrible at finding the right words, or the posh technical words of like, God, I can't even think. I talk in kind of brass tacks, but if you're not good at it like me, start to be good at it. Speak to your manager, speak to people that you trust, and find out, get their presentations, find out what words they're using, get the HR presentation of their strategy. Hopefully your HR team has a strategy. I'd like to think they do. What words are they using? Make sure you're matching those words in your presentation. Make sure your North Star is their North Star. But yeah, I'm happy to stay
and
on.
mention that you're saving shitloads of money.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
get the buy-in, right?
But yeah, you've got to find what works for them. For us, it was money, because it was a significant, because like I said, we were going from a very expensive LXP LMS. Do you know the ironic thing is that after all the requirements and after all everything, we actually spent an extra 2 million a year than what we were actually spending before. Because once they got into it and thought, oh yeah, this is good, they were like, oh yeah, we want that. Oh, we want, like, because Degree do extras. So they do the skills matrix, which is extra. They do what's it called? Stretch assignments. They do all these different things that are added on. And so my management was like, yeah, we want that. Yeah, we want that. Yeah, we want that. Yeah, we want that. And so it ended up, we spent an absolute fortune. But I was like, I don't care, it's not my money. But yeah, but the initial hook was saving money. But it could be if your CEO is talking, like in my company at the moment, our CEO is talking about speed and speed to efficiency. And our HR, their biggest area is skills and retainment of talent and engagement and that kind of thing. So the business case I'm making, because I'm starting all over again, is the business case I'm making to my management now is about a single source of truth and using technology to scale and autonomize things and make things much more quicker so that people can get up to speed quicker. And again, LXP is just one part of a learning strategy. Don't just fixate on LXP thinking that's going to save your lives. I'll happily share with you an image from one of my Miro boards that I created, where I've created what I think is a North Star of a multinational company. And it's things like not just your typical LMS, but it's video learning, coaching platforms, mentoring platforms, chatbots, external curated content platforms. There is a myriad of ones, and they all feed into an LXP, and then that becomes your strategy. So don't just fixate on an LXP, because it won't answer all your problems. It would just help you focus the user.
And which one were the top three? So you picked Degree. Who was second?
So for me, it was Degrees, LearnAmp, and How Now.
LearnAmp.
Yeah, lovely guys. LearnAmp.
And the third one?
How Now.
Oh, How Now? Yeah. Also really cool.
Absolutely brilliant guys. If it was up to me, we would have gone with LearnAmp, because they're an LXP designed by learners, whereas Degreed is kind of an LXP designed by committee. It's still an amazing platform, but yeah, it wasn't my choice. Yeah, again, I'll be honest. Edcast, don't like them. They actually failed our IT test. I just don't like them. Learn 360 were good, but too sporadic. Learning Technologies, which is like Leo, and now they've bought a couple of other ones, too dispersed for what we needed. But yeah, I can send you the list of, I think I started with about 15. Kind of some random companies that we're just never going to get through, but yeah, you got to put them on the list.
All right.
It's LearnAmp, AMP rather than APM.
Yeah, sorry.
Cool. I know that's kind of way over, but I'm happy if anybody's got any further questions. Oh, cool. Well, I mean, if just in terms of myself, I'm sure most of you know, obviously I'm on Slack. I'm on LinkedIn as well. My kind of acronym or alter ego, the Never Ending Learner. So you can find me on neverendinglearner.com. If you want to kind of have a good laugh, you can see my YouTube channel that has got like 6 people, including my mum, on there. But yeah, it's just something I'm starting as a kind of just a little side hustle and that kind of thing. So feel free to connect to me. I'm happy to have, I think I've spoken to quite a lot of you already kind of on the side. So I'm happy to walk through people, just have a chat with them. But Anna, thank you very much for the time.
Thank you for sharing your process. And we will follow up with an email with all of the good resources that you can share with us. Just send them over to me.
Give me a couple of days to find it.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
And I'll send it over to everybody.
Perfect. Perfect. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Toby. And thanks everyone for showing up here. Have a great rest of your day, evening, and we'll see you around. Watch out for the heat.
Yes. Cheers, everybody.
You.
Take care. Bye-bye.